Now available in paperback and e-readers. Easteen, Little Girl Lost. The devilish diva helps a lost little girl find her way home in this devilishly funny Easteen series adventure. Get Easteen, Little Girl Lost in paperback and e-readers today. You often hear in the media about these social justice warriors, these blue-haired, purple-haired, green-haired individuals who sit there and talk about how they are fighting for social justice against the quote-unquote patriarchy and how they're fighting to make things more diverse and more tolerant. However, when I take a closer examination of these social justice warriors as a black man, I see nothing more than the white liberal's grandson and the white liberal's daughter. And when it comes down to this white liberal, they're the biggest racist in the room. They'll sit there and talk about how they're fighting this moral crusade for social justice. Meanwhile, they're promoting the same racism and white supremacy that their grandfathers and grandmothers promoted back in the 1960s. Because when you take a look at this social justice warrior and you compare it to the hippie of the 1960s, you can see the exact same hypocrisy that those hippies had regarding people. Now, when it came down to this hippie, they were sitting there talking about how they were about social justice, how they were about being tolerant, how they were about everybody being a family, talking about all this free love and free society. However, when you take a look at the hippie over the last 20 years, your hippie turned out to be the biggest racist in the room because they only tolerate people as long as they fit a narrative. As long as you're fitting into the smooth world of the white liberal, everything is fine. And that's the same argument that the social justice warrior has when you look at their talk about diversity. When you hear them talking about diversity and inclusion, what they really are talking about is having a smooth world. And the world needs to be smooth for them so that they don't have to deal with any conflicts, any problems, and most importantly, any competition from people of color. Because what they're scared of most is a person of color not fitting into their narrative. No different than that of that white liberal, because when it comes down to this white liberal and this social justice warrior, the descendant of the white liberal, they don't mind people of color as long as they're fitting into the boxes that they create for them. So as long as a black guy is a street dude, they have no problem with them. As long as a Hispanic guy is wearing a bandana and talking about churros and coronas, they have no problem with them. As long as an Asian person is talking about laundry and Chinese food, they have no problem with them. As long as the Arab person is wearing a hijab, they have no problem with them. As long as the Indian person is subservient and submissive, they have no problem with them. It's only when you come out of the boxes that the white liberal social justice warrior has for those individuals that the social justice warrior starts to have a problem with you. And that's when they start getting loud, because when it comes down to your social justice warrior, they have no understanding of how to create a constructive argument. So they try to shout people down to silence them, and they try to use shaming language to silence people and talk about this patriarchy and how you're so for the patriarchy, when in actuality, they just do not know how to formulate an argument to effectively debate you and debate your points. When it comes down to your social justice warrior, not only are they the biggest racists in the room, they're often the stupidest person in the room. And the reason why they're so stupid is because they went in here to these colleges and they took stupid majors, and their professors made no efforts to teach them any sort of depth to their subject matter. So when it comes down to this social justice warrior, they know absolutely nothing about a subject because they have next to no life experience and they have no real understanding of anything outside of what their feminist and mangina professors have taught them. And to listen to them argue and debate with them is like arguing with a stupid person, because these people have no understanding of any sort of logic and reason. Everything with them is about emotion. They cannot deconstruct talking points. They cannot deconstruct an argument. They cannot even formulate an argument. The only way they know how to get things is by throwing adult temper tantrums where they go out and march and protest, and then they go out here shouting, or they use shaming language, and they go out here talking about a social justice agenda when it's really about them promoting and pushing their liberal narrative towards people and trying to shame them into getting whatever goodies they want. They're not about tolerance or supporting anyone. They're about making sure that they remain the white supremacists who get most of their needs met at the expense of the minorities they say that they're championing and advocating for. They're not advocating for people of color. They only want to continue promoting the same racism and white supremacy that the white liberal has been pushing for the last couple of decades. And when it comes down to this social justice warrior, they are the next generation white liberal. Because when it comes down to this white liberal, they are the biggest racists in the room, and they get away with their racism by pretending to be tolerant and creating a covert contract with people like your Black Lives Matter, saying that we'll include you, but we're only going to include you if you fit these certain parameters and do things on certain terms. That's why their social justice isn't really about justice, because they are just about themselves. They're just a bunch of spoiled, rotten, liberal narcissists who talk about how they're so tolerant, how they're so inclusive, and how they're fighting for a better America when they're fighting for the same old dysfunctional America that the white liberal created when he created his welfare state back in the late 1960s and early 1970s. And they want to continue getting the same goodies that their grandfather, their grandmother, their fathers, and their mothers got at the expense of everyone else. When I look at these social justice warriors, I see nothing more than a group of hypocrites, a bunch of liars, and anyone who caters to these social justice warriors often winds up losing in the end. Because when you take a long, hard look at this social justice warrior, they are not about helping anyone. They're about getting things at the expense of others. And if you really look at them, they're not interested in building anything. They're all about getting for themselves and then saying, we're all about tolerance, and it's all about tolerating people to get what they want. They're the biggest users in the room, no different than this white liberal. And when you take a look at their racism and see it for what it is, you see that their social crusade is not about helping people. It's all about helping themselves. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.